And we are back with Kingdom Dads. What's up, Andrew? How's your day today?
And it's good.
What about your week? How's your week this week?
Man, this is one of my favorite weeks of the year. We got the time change that just happened, so it is daylight past 3:45, which is great.
That is nice. That is nice. I like the time. It takes me a little bit to get going in the mornings, but once I get on this schedule, I love it. So we got time change this week. We got spring break this week.
Yeah,
man, we've got all the things piling up right now. What's up, Tanner? How are you?
I'm good. Hanging out.
You guys do not have the privilege of having kids with spring break assigned yet, but we're staying here this week on spring break because I was going to travel to the usual spot in Pensacola where we go down near 30A. But it's only like 66 degrees for a high all week. And I'm like, we're not going to spend that money and go down there and not be able to get in the water.
It's still that cold. I feel like spring break's a bit early this year.
It is early.
Is it?
Ours was always the first week of April in elementary school. And these guys are like, hey, it's February 14th. We're going to take a week off.
Yeah. That's what the new
Valentine's
the new
spring break.
year-round schedule, right? Like a week off every 2 weeks, however that works.
It does feel like that. Like the amount of weeks that we have where they're in school all 5 days. I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
I don't feel it yet because luckily my mom's a huge help to us. But yeah, daycare's out this week where we go to daycare.
Yep.
It's trying to figure out what to do with the kiddos is can be a challenge. Can be a challenging week.
Man, we ours is at a sleepover. We just dropped her off a little bit ago at her best friend's house, and then we're gonna take on that load later in the week and trade off. So that's a hack right there. We're gonna dive into, but. You know, when you don't have plans, find other parents who also don't have plans. That you take them these couple days, I'll take them these couple days.
Heck yeah, take turns.
Yeah,
split up the duties. Well, speaking of hacks, and so what the dad is fun, but we want to throw in another segment. Is that right, Andrew?
Yes, we got a new segment teeing up today. So, I'm all about dad hacks, and so that's what we're going to call this segment. And we want to hear from you guys, you moms and dads out there both. When it comes to raising little kids, there are a lot of things, a lot of hacks that you can look up and that you learn that you're like, okay, I didn't do this with my first, but I'm definitely doing it with my second now that I know. I'm going to share the greatest tool of all time that I use as a dad hack. I've got here on the table with me, and it is the snot sucker. Listen, it should be called the booger bong if I was marketing it.
Oh, no.
Tanner just
wow. Mark that time.
But if you're not familiar with the snot sucker, in the nose, in the mouth, not your own. Listen, kids can't blow their nose till they're like 16 years old.
Can you demonstrate it on Nate real quick?
Yeah, we're good. And everybody can imagine their YouTube videos.
Check out the video version on YouTube.
In the comments.
Ours is old. It doesn't even have the filter in it anymore. We live on the edge around here. So, which is just, you think about this invention and it's basically baffling. I mean, you're literally sucking viruses into your own body, but your kid feels better immediately. So
yes. The next hack is going to be how you hold your kids down for that. We just before this episode, we were talking about my son can be kind of timid at times unless he is very adamant about something. And using this device on him, he was very adamant about it not happening. Like, imagine me trying to hold him down. He's got like his fist balled up, his feet are kicking, his arms are swinging, his head's going back and forth. My wife's trying to like keep it under his nose.
He's like, I am keeping these boogers in here.
Yes, we never successfully were able to use that, but maybe practice. We just need some more practice.
Missed out. Yep. Maybe on number 2. You heard it, Kelly.
Speaking of, this segment will probably be great for Tanner and I, right? Because we're one in. I've got an almost 4-year-old, and Andy's almost 3. Is that right?
Yep.
Andy,
2.5-ish.
2.5-year-old, and so we're really just learning from Andrew right now with this 8-year-old and this 5-year-old. So
every single baby shower, which dads are now invited to somehow, as we talked previously. I don't know when that happened, but anytime we have to buy a present, that's what I buy. I'm like, you need one of these.
I'm gonna make a note of that.
Yeah, it's good. All right.
Awesome,
well, welcome to Dad Hacks. Thank you, and you're welcome.
Yeah, let's roll. Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
So we're talking about God's timing and having faith in the journey today. Yeah. We started out when we were preparing for this episode wanting to do God's timing. All right, because that's tough. As we were preparing and as I was preparing for this, I think I just kept putting information together, and I kept getting frustrated because God was saying, bro, you don't know my timing yet. I'm still working on you.
So you can't do a podcast on this. You don't even know.
No, you were still smack dab in the middle of the journey. And so, really what we're going to focus on is going back to faith in the journey and having faith in your journey because it is hard. It's a challenge. We talked about it early on in the first couple of episodes about the challenge of faith and having faith, but I think it's good for us to circle back around to having faith when you know God is putting something on your heart or calling you to do something different, something more. But God's really got you in this spot of challenge, right? Of growth. Mm-hmm. Man, how hard is true growth? Man, it's tough, right?
Yeah, and it's easy when, you're praying for things or you feel like you're on God's trajectory and you're getting the answers and they're going well and going smooth and you're hitting the next steps. But when you're in a season of waiting, man, those are the seasons where it's hard to keep faithful. So, and the more we've talked about this topic, it's kind of funny, and Nate will mention this, but we had been talking about this being the next topic, and then, we show up for church on Sunday and find out, oh, that's kind of what we're talking about on Sunday and what our pastor's talking about. And so we're going to tie those two together a bit today, and it's been very relevant in our men's groups, even just the number of guys that are struggling with God's timing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's wild how that's worked the last couple of weeks, especially this week, right? Like I was kind of struggling to put together exactly how I could imagine this podcast flowing, and then we walk into church on Sunday and Tom's preaching about it, right? And I referenced Tom because we were messaging back and forth and we were like, man, this is exactly what we're talking about tomorrow. I wonder if he'll come on. Yeah. Which he was on a flight this morning at 10 o'clock, but he was so gracious that he sent us his notes. And so I am going to refer to those notes at times during this podcast because there's some things that he worded really well. Yeah. And I want to convey that message kind of just like he conveyed it to me, just kind of the way I heard it. But I'll reference when I'm taking his exact message. But, one of the key points that stuck with me, jumping ahead, we're going to talk about Moses a little bit, but man, it's easy to follow God. It's easy to follow the journey when God is parting the Red Sea, right? Yep. And you're walking through the Red Sea and you can see what God's doing. But, the year of journey before Moses got to that point, man, that's hard to get through.
Yeah, and when you're standing on the bank knowing, hey, I think he said he's going to part the Red Sea and he's going to get me through this, but the enemy is behind me and he hasn't parted yet.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough.
Yeah, and coming back to faith, I talked about my story a bit, in episode 2 and where God called me to have faith and God called me to have faith for the first time in my life, and a lot of things, there were a lot of changes that were going on. My life changed quite a bit for the better. And so here I am, 6-8 months later from that month. And it's like, I'm so ready to move on. I'm so ready for God to show me what he has called me to do, right? Mm-hmm. Like a piece of it is probably this podcast, but so ready to see what's the outcome. I'm like, God, just give it to me. I promise I'm ready for it. And as I was preparing for this podcast, looking back, it's like, no, you're not quite ready yet. You're still in a spot of growth, and that's tough. And so, really that's the goal today is just reference that and talk to a lot of you guys out there and gals that may be in that journey currently and are getting frustrated, because it's easy to get frustrated, right? It's easy to not see the miracles. It's easy to not lean on what you've learned when things were really tough, right? It may be even harder when things aren't going extremely bad, or you don't feel like you're in the deepest, darkest of your journey, but you're not quite to that end game yet, right? Like a big thing for me was always knowing the outcome, right? Every time I've done something in life, it's like, all right, I'm going to go on this journey and I know my goal. And right now I feel like I'm truly on a spot where I'm trying to be faithful and say, all right, God, I don't know the end game, but you give me one step at a time, one step of the way, I will stay consistent and I will take that step. And there are weeks where my mind runs and I get frustrated and I realize, whoa, I'm jumping ahead. I'm doing Nate's direction and I'm on Nate's path instead of God's path. And so
that's one thing at group last night. we all, our wives and kids are all there. And I was talking to your wife about her journey with her business. And I know she's struggling to see that next step as well and get clarity on that. And so, we all, like you said, we all want details, like a detailed outline leading to success, which is funny because that's the opposite of faith. If we see the end and no guaranteed success is there, it doesn't require faith, even though we may be seeking God's direction in that. And I just told her, I said, it's funny because we do want the details, but sometimes I really feel like God is like, hey, I put the vision on your heart. I just want you to go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you set it up here or there or there. I just want you to go.
I'll make it work out. I want you to take the steps.
And that is tough, especially when it involves big financial decisions, like starting a business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. And so diving into this, there are two main things I lean on really as I am trying to work through my challenges and stay faithful. And so the first one is really God controls timing, God controls the path, and God controls the results. A verse that's really stood out to me more of late is Isaiah 40, verse 31. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. And I try to continue to reflect on that. That was written by Isaiah and Isaiah to the Israelites that were going to be in 70 years of exile in Babylon, just to continue to give them strength, right? And I just said, like, I'm 8 months into this journey. I really feel like, and man, this verse is talking to people that are going through it for 70 years.
You got 69 years and 4 months left.
Yeah, I know, right? So just try to reflect on that and try to put it into perspective, Man, I do hope that if I have faith really good, I don't have to wait 69 years, but I might, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Other things that I really lean on, even the Lord's Prayer, right? Like the majority of us probably know the Lord's Prayer, and in Matthew 6:11, give us this day our daily bread. To how much of us is that enough? I want to have the true faith. I want to have faith strong enough where I can wake up each morning, no matter what's going on, and just pray, God, give us this day my daily bread. Which, as I was researching for this, I feel like a lot of times people memorize the Lord's Prayer, and it's like God tells you this is how you should pray. But as I really dove in, it's more of the Lord's Prayer is an outline, is an example of this is kind of what your prayer looks like. And so give us this day our daily bread is more just an analogy of God, help me focus on my challenges for today, not my challenges a week from now, not my challenges 6 months from now. Help me focus on my challenges for today. And that's really tough. You think about worry and anxiety and being frustrated when you're going through the journey, and everybody may not deal with anxiety or may not be a huge worrier, but I feel like just in men in general, if we don't see the goal, if we don't see this is exactly what my goal is and this is the timeline I want to get here, that gets frustrating, right? Yeah. And sticking with the Sermon on the Mount, right? Because that's kind of where the Lord's Prayer is. And in Matthew chapter 6, 25 through 33, that area of the Bible is labeled, do not be anxious. And so in this part of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus was teaching about trusting God instead of really worrying about the future or holding yourself to this point of like, this is where I need to get, this is where my neighbor is, this is where my buddy is, this is how I need to get there. And that the end of that ends with verse 34, and it says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient of the day is its own trouble. And these verses just stand out to me so strong, and I just I've got to continually go back to them, right? Yeah. Because in the journey, it's hard to not want to know where you're going. It's hard to not want to know the outcome. It's hard just to look and say, all right, God, I might not be in a spot that I really want to be in, but I'm going to have faith that you're going to use me today, that you're going to fill me up. And, something I talked about in episode 2 in my story is not enjoying the journey, right? Always just like, powering through the journey and being unhappy, right? Being stressed, being angry, and then getting to the outcome. And you know what I've realized when I reflect back on that, it's like, great, I got to the outcome. Okay, that's good for a day, a week, a short period of time. Yeah. When it's like, I went on this little year-long journey and it was miserable, right? Yeah. Like, I've got to look back. I've got to support my family and enjoy those moments. And so, before we get too much further, that's kind of my challenge for our listeners, right? Like, look at your day to day. I imagine if you look a week out, a month out, years out, like there's things you can be stressed about. But what good is happening today, I
feel like it's very easy to have that once we get to this point, then it will be easier mindset as well when you're in the season with kids and young kids. I know when Hannah was, our oldest was young, I barely even remember her from the season where she was like 0 to 4 because it was, our first kid. I remember feeling like that regular, like, oh, she was very colicky, like, oh, it'll be better when we get through this or when we get to this milestone. And I've been really intentional since Eden, our second one, has come along to not be in that because it just blows by you. And that, exactly like you said, once you're to the milestone, it's not any better. It's just a new milestone.
Yeah,
there's just something new.
There's something different you're working towards, something different you have to focus on.
Yeah, so it is critical to shift your spirit and to mature in a way to get to the point where you're able to enjoy and be content with the daily and focus on your daily. And not being irresponsible with the long-term strategy, but
absolutely,
there's a balance for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to that, you want to have some kind of plan in place, right? Like you want to set your family up financially. You want to have goals, right? It's not just blow every paycheck and live for today, right? You do want to have sound mind about the future, but there also is a piece of you can only control so much. So make good decisions today. Do what you can today. And soak up the positives, soak up the 65-degree weather outside and the fun you're having with your kiddos just running around in the backyard, versus stressed about work or stressed about next steps or anything along those lines.
I think, man, it's tough. I know I'm a task-oriented person, and our girls are young and we'll be outside, and I can very quickly take the opportunity if we're outside, for example, living in the moment of the day, to say, all right, well, they're playing on the playground. I'm going to go work in the shed or go work in the shop or get this thing done in the yard and turn it into a task while they're busy. While they're asking, like, Dad, pull us on the zip line. We've got a zip line across our backyard, or I'm doing this right now. And I have to be very intentional to say, nope, I'm focusing on the day, my time with them. I'm not trying to prioritize the task at hand in my brain. Man, it's tough.
It is.
It's like, it almost makes me squirmy when I can't get done what I'm trying to get done though.
Yes. Yeah. There's times where it's like, I've even committed to not doing my project or whatever's on my mind to go play with my son. And then it's like, I find myself still thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to do this after, and this is what I can do tomorrow. I'm still like planning out my day. And it's like, dude, just chill. Just
enjoy the day.
And enjoy the minute. Enjoy the second, which is tough to do. But all part of enjoying the journey, which, I feel like is tough for a lot of guys. As we've talked in our group, as I've talked to other men, just sitting back and enjoying the pleasure of what's going on around you. Speaking of as we were preparing for this and Tom talking yesterday, I do want to reference his sermon a little bit because he talked about Moses. And the way he presented that was very impactful for me, because we all know the story of Moses, right? And the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and, getting away from Pharaoh, going through the Red Sea. We all know that, but, I've never really thought about it from the journey of what Moses did and how him and God interacted on that journey, right? I mean, because you start out, right? Moses is walking along, and God calls to Moses from a burning bush that's burning, but it's not being consumed, right? It's just like it's on fire, right? And so first off, you got Moses that sees this burning bush, and so like he starts talking to God through this bush, right? And God calls Moses to go lead his people out of Egypt, right, away from Pharaoh. And instead of just being like, "Wow, I'm talking to a burning bush. This bush is speaking to me. This is the Lord giving me a commandment." Instead of just being like, "Yes, sir, I'll do." He's like, he argues with him, he's like, who am I to do this? Yeah. What if they don't believe me? And then God's like, I'll give you the sign. You can throw your staff on the ground and turn it to a serpent. And then he does the pull your hand out of your pocket, shows he has leprosy, puts it back in, pulls it out. Leprosy's gone. And then he's still arguing with him. He's like, man, I'm just not a good speaker. I just can't do it. And he's like, I'll send Aaron with you, And so, like, it's so
Guy
funny.
walking by is like, God, he also can't do it because he's talking to a bush. He's insane.
But, I mean, first off, the first steps of this, like, Moses is about to go on this journey he's uncomfortable with. And he's kind of arguing with the Lord instead of the Lord saying, like, I'm a burning bush. Go do what I'm asking you to do right now.
Yeah.
The Lord is appeasing him. He's given him signs to show. He's given him Moses to go with him. Like, he's given him all these tools, and he's really working with him because he wants Moses to feel empowered. He wants Moses to feel supported. And so, I mean, you look, and even in the Old Testament, when we have this God that doesn't always appease people in that manner, here he is working through the challenges with Moses, setting Moses up for success.
Yeah.
He knows Moses is about to go on a rough journey, and he is supporting him. But yet Moses, like us, we're still on that journey, and it's like, man, you give me some great stuff along the way, God, but I'm still not loving this.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, Moses' doubt was coming from a lack of faith, right? I mean, Tanner, I don't know about you, but if you had a burning bush start talking to you and it was God, I mean, would you question what he's asking you to do?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah?
I mean,
you would?
Would you?
On a faithless generation.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely a different generation there.
Just being real, like, if a bush started talking to me in front of me, I should probably talk into the mic. If a bush started talking in front of me, I would probably, like, am I okay?
I'm going to turn myself in on that ketamine therapy or whatever it is now.
Yeah. And then being real, as the conversation went on, I'd probably be like, okay, I get it. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
It's funny. But really let's get into the journey, right? Because God sent Moses on this journey. And, I'm just thinking, like, as I heard this story as a child, I'm like, oh, yeah, Moses, like, God had his back. He went and talked to Pharaoh. God sent down some plagues to change Pharaoh's mind, and they went on their way, right? But this was actually a year journey. And so Moses, went to Egypt, which probably took a month, potentially. Took time. He's probably in his head the whole way there. Gets there, talks to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's like, dude, I don't know your Lord. I'm not letting your people go. And not only am I not letting your people go, I'm going to give them more work to do. They got to now collect their own straw and make their bricks. I'm not going to supply them with straw anymore. Right? And so now Moses' own people are unhappy with him. And this is where Tom got to the sermon yesterday that really impacted me. And so I'm just going to kind of use his points and kind of talk kind of what he laid out. But many times God only gives you one step at a time, right? And it's our job to have that faith and take that step without knowing the ultimate outcome. Moses probably would have been more comfortable if when he went to Pharaoh, he was like, God's got my back. We're going to do all these things to you if you don't let him go. Pharaoh was like, yeah, sure. But Moses didn't know it. But having to wait on God's timing, having to go through this year of challenge and the Israelites not get instant freedom, he had no idea how much God was going to use this story.
Yeah.
Right? Something so much bigger was at stake,
Let me ask this. Did God tell Moses before he said, hey, go talk to Pharaoh, have him let your people go? Did he say it's going to take several times?
He kind of gave him a bit of an overview of different ththings that were going to happen along the ways. And so, I think Moses had some idea of what was coming.
Yep.
But dude, I think it still, I just imagine, like, as I was preparing for this and looking back at my own journey, it's like, there's so many times where you can look back where God stepped in or God gave you the tools you needed. And still it's so easy for us just to continue to go on our path and not fully have faith. Forget that question you asked where you got an answer, and then that other question you asked where you got an answer.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I'm 10 questions in. God, please, can you just can you just show me this one more time just to keep me on the right path?
Yeah.
And so, I think he did have a little bit of background on that, but yeah, I mean, this story is so big that, thousands of years later, it's one of your first stories you probably hear as a child, right? It's a major story in bringing people to the Word of God, bringing people to God, right? There's movies made about it. And so, I mean, you don't really think like that, but think all the way back in, I don't know, 700 BC, maybe. I just kind of threw out a date somewhere probably in that timeline. But, think about how long ago that was. And God still today is using that story, that challenge that Moses went through, and bringing people to Christ today. Yeah. One of the strong points Tom left with was your moments of waiting and trusting in God just might be your moments of greatest testimony as well. Like Moses, it's easy to follow God when God parts the Red Sea, but it's harder to follow when the path God takes us leads to a cross, the trials and tribulations that only God can help us overcome.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was really eye-opening for me, and it is encouraging, right? And so, listeners out there, I mean, that are struggling on the journey, that just feel like you're showing up at work each day to get the job done and go home, or you don't really know the path that you're going with your family. Right? God doesn't ask you to know the path. God doesn't say, hey, I need you to have it all figured out today. Yeah. God says, I'll give you this day your daily bread. I need you to trust in me. I need you to do what I've called you to do today because I know your needs. Right? It's I can't remember the exact verse, but it's I take care of the birds, I take care of the flowers. Right? Why would I not take care of you? And so the challenge is truly to trust that when you're in this journey. Maybe it's a 6-month journey, maybe it's a 5-year journey.
I liked what Tom mentioned yesterday as well, and I do think there's a lot of truth to this. But when we ask ourselves, why do we struggle with the waiting or with his timing? And I think the way he put it was, I feel like we're in a microwave culture, right? Where everything microwave, Amazon Prime, Netflix. We don't even have to go to the rental store anymore to rent a video. We can instantly download. We can even watch movies now that are in theaters still on Prime. I know some of those are out before they're out of theaters.
Yeah.
And man, that's evident when you're raising kids with their iPads and everything. Like they want things now and at their fingertips immediately, and we're the same way. And so when we have to wait, man, it's tough. And I feel like as men anyway, because we're providers, a lot of our security is in our ability to provide for our families. And by us not knowing maybe where our story is headed or where a certain thing that we think we're supposed to do is headed, that flags our security. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, am I going to be able to provide? Am I going to be the person I'm supposed to be? Am I going to do my job? Faith, it just goes against everything that our humanness wants to employ.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just, it's not just us. We were talking about the journey and God's timing in our men's group this last Saturday, and this just popped in my head. But one of the guys referenced, like, when you're planting a young tree, if you bound it too much, right? If you tie it down and you don't let it sway in the wind, like, it's not going to spread roots. Yep. It's got to take those challenges to grow, and just like us, if God just gave us everything right away, we're probably not going to grow. We're probably not going to be the person God's called us to be. And so, that's what those challenges are there for, and they're important.
The other thing that I've definitely learned that's interesting is, God's lens and his view of things, his kingdom view, is so much bigger and deeper than ours. And a lot of times we'll be like, I'm ready to get out of this job, or I'm ready to do this, or I'm praying for this. And he's like, I have you there for someone else or for some other purpose that you don't even know about.
Yep.
That's happening and that is working through you. And it's not even about you.
100%.
Man, we've seen that, a lot in the Bible.
Yes. Yes. A lot in the Bible, a lot in our own lives.
Yeah.
And
so that's what I just try to continually take myself back to, is when I'm praying and feeling like I'm not getting the immediate answer. It's like, okay, he's got a bigger picture. It's funny, even with everything that's happened with my family and my mom and all that, are a younger, less mature, me would say, okay, in the instance of my mom, like, why didn't you save my mom in her battle with cancer? A more mature me is like, and it's funny, we were talking about this as a family the other day, and I think God sees our time on this earth in a very different way than we do. I think his view of kingdom is like, it's all of eternity, right?
Yeah.
And this time on earth is probably a lot less significant than what it is for us on this time on earth.
100% true.
And so I firmly believe now, I'm like looking back at that, I'm like, oh, well, it's, he may not have saved my mom or whatever your example is, because the picture, it's more of a relief for her to be with him than to spend more time here suffering. And I don't know, it just changes your perspective when you start to view it from his lens instead of our own very small view. So
yeah, that's a great point, because you talk about the microwave example, right?
Yeah.
Like we want things 30 seconds to a minute, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're going through challenges in life, like you want an answer pretty quick, weeks to a month, right? And now think about it from God's lens, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, you're 80, 90 years on this earth. It's like 30 seconds in the microwave, bro.
Yeah.
You can't fathom an eternity.
Yeah.
And so, man, sit on that for a little bit.
Yeah, Francis Chan's demonstration is like he takes a shoelace and he's like, the wax part at the end of the shoelace, he's like, that's your time on earth. He said, now the rest of this, think of that as eternity and the way God views it. And I'm like, dang, that's a good visual.
That's a great visual. So, I mean, so reflecting back on that first point, right? God's in control. Yeah. But the second point, to know that along this journey, Satan is going to attack you, right? Especially as you get closer to what God is calling you to do, right? Especially as you're bringing people to the kingdom and you're doing things for God. Satan's going to show up because he doesn't want you to succeed.
Yep. He is going to whisper lies like crazy. God's not answering you. He's not answering your prayers. He doesn't care about your prayer requests.
Yeah,
look,
absolutely.
You prayed it and there's no response.
Yeah.
All lies.
And it talks about it over and over again in the Bible. Your battles against evil, right? It's not like what you can see.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, I like in our show notes, we've got Ephesians 6:10 through 13, which is really good. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. Schemes, exactly like we're just talking about. It's what they are. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. And that's that maturity, guys, of just knowing what you're up against, the lack of answering that, it may just feel like at first glance. There's so much more going on. And if you feel a strong calling, or you feel like, man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or I'm on, this is the path, even though I'm not getting answers, just stay the course. It's like riding out the stock market. You may have dips and lulls, and Nate's a day trader, so he's looking at me, but it was
kind of some, kind of.
Over the long term, like you will see God's faith in that, in whatever your story is. He is faithful. He doesn't abandon. He doesn't forget about a prayer request.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the market, and it's funny because going back to my story last year, truly I was one. I didn't believe that I didn't believe my prayers mattered, because I knew they did. But it's like God's got me on this path, right? I grew up in a Christian family. Like, I'm good. I'll just kind of coast, go to church on Sundays, do my thing during the week, and same thing with Satan, right? Like I'm on this path that God's put me on. He's not coming after me. He doesn't care. And in all reality, that's where Satan wants you. He wants you to be in that spot. And then when you start making a difference, he will attack. You brought up the day trading, and talking about my story last year, right before I went on this this trip to Honduras with Aerial Recovery. I was doing a bit of day trading the week before, man, and it's crazy. The reason I don't do it is just because I couldn't handle the highs and lows, right? Like literally, you would make $3,000 in 20 minutes, and then you would lose $3,000 in 1 minute. Like, it was just insane. But I remember there was one day I was trading right before we left. This was on the Thursday. I think we were flying out on that Sunday or Monday. But I had been trading, and literally I lost like $2,500 in 30 seconds. And I was mad. Like, I'd had a really good morning, and then like lost everything I'd made that morning to break even, and then just like went in the negative on like 2,500 in no time. God. And I was mad. I was not happy at all. And I'm like, I don't even want to spend the money to go on this trip next week.
Yep.
And the leader of the trip sent out a text, Brittany Turner, and said, hey guys, a lot of you have reached out. I hadn't reached out, but she was like, a lot of you have reached out, and we're about to do something really great. The enemy is attacking, and so know that and be strong. And it just like literally that came out like 30 minutes after I was having this deep debate in my head, like I don't need to go, I don't need to spend this money, I need to wait till I make some more. And that was one of there were many stories along the way, but that was one of the things that really stood out to me. Of the devil will attack you, the devil will try to slow you down, and the devil will use your defeats against you, right? You are fighting him in your mind, even when you go back to the Garden of Eden, right? It's his words that he's using.
Yep.
That's who you're fighting day in and day out. And if you don't realize that, if you don't know who your enemy is, if you think your enemy is your neighbor or your boss or somebody that works for you or whatever that's going on in your life right now, if that's who you're pointing at to be your enemy, the devil's got you. He's got you right where he wants you.
Yep.
Because they're not your enemy. It's Satan. It's evil.
The lesson of what Nate just said is don't day trade. Do what Tanner does and trade Yu-Gi-Oh cards, because Tanner said he's up 900 this week.
Yep, got a great pack yesterday.
Potentially.
Listen,
gotta get him sold.
Get him sold. He's a Yu-Gi-Oh shark.
Yeah,
he plays less confident, but he knows.
Yeah, he's got to find the right person. He doesn't want to know. He doesn't want the person that he's about to jip listening out.
I saw Hannah has a pack of Pokemon cards on her desk in her room this morning. I'm gonna have him look through them before I leave and pull a 600 out of there.
Yeah.
Oh really? I'll look.
Look how excited he is.
That's funny.
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely, the devil's out there and he's attacking.
Yep, spot on. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been a really good discussion today. Yeah. We want to hear from you guys. Let us know, as you're thinking about listening to this, what are you struggling with in the waiting? What are you unsure about? How's that impacting you? So let us know. Reach out, on any of the socials. We want to hear from you, and we're here with you. You guys are not walking this alone this week. We're all in a waiting season. All three of us in this room are in a waiting season. I can tell you very confidently from just talking. So
yes, and we would love you to go on this journey with us. On the way in today to do this podcast, I was listening to another podcast, and it was talking about how even when Jesus created disciples and sent them out, he sent them out in pairs, right? You're not called to do things alone.
Yeah.
And so jump in. What are you struggling with? What do you need support with? What are your challenges? I mean, you're hearing ours as we go, and we want to be here with you. We want you to support us, and we want to support you. Yeah. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Guys, I want to just call out an upcoming event that we're going to just start talking about. We've got Rise Up coming at Northfield Church for Men. Right. If you're in the local area, it is, what date is that, Nate? Tanner, is it March 30th?
It's the last Sunday in March. You were just saying that, and I was thinking 30th or 31st, but it's going to be that last Sunday in March.
We'll post a promo code for registration, for discount on registration on our site. We're partnering with Northfield on that. Man, those men's events are incredible. It doesn't have to be your church. I know I've gone to many that are not my home church, and just hearing speakers and being sharpened by other men at those. So encourage you guys to go if you're not planning to already. I saw Tanner ride a mechanical bull one time there. It was maybe one of the most uncoordinated efforts I've ever witnessed, and I will not soon forget it.
That would be worth the price of admission.
For some reason, I am the banner art image for the Northfield Men.
Yes, you are.
Account.
Yes, you are.
Like, yeah, okay, cool.
That's
Great.
good.
Glad I could
Tanner
be
representing.
There.
Oddly enough, that bull's name was Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't even know. He whipped it. All right, guys. Nate, you want to pray us out?
I'll do it. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for being with our listeners wherever they are today. Lord, I ask that you continue to support us and continue to shed light on the journey and the path that we're on. You can see, you know how we struggle with it, Lord. And so continue to support us to have faith in you, have faith in the journey, continue to help us fight the words of Satan, the evil that's out there, Lord, and help us look to you each day. Give us this day our daily bread. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, Kingdom Dads? Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Share with your friends, and check us out on any site where your pods are cast.
I love that. Pods are cast. Hey, guys, we're also excited about an event coming up at Northfield Church here in Gallatin. It's a Rise Up Men's event. It's going to be March 30th from 5 to 8 p.m. Kingdom Dads, we are opening up the event. We're going to do a live podcast event for the first 35 or 40 minutes or so once doors open, and I think it's going to be a really great event. Man, we're excited to see you there. We're going to post a promo code on our site. See you soon.